know that feeling, right? You understand so much of a language, you can read it, follow conversations, but then it's your turn to speak, and nothing.
Yeah, just silence. Like a wall between your brain and your mouth.
Exactly. It's super frustrating, especially when you're learning a new language.
It really is. It's a hurdle, a really common one. Moving from just getting it passively to actually, producing the language yourself, that phase where you feel like you're soaking it all in, but just can't quite get it out.
Well, if that sounds familiar, you are definitely not alone. And today, on the deep dive, we're going to explore a really, I think, inspiring story that tackles this exact problem head on.
We are. We're diving into this personal account, it's called, From Silent to Fluent, My Alone Time English Practice.
Think of this as like an inside look at how one person smashed through that speaking barrier and got fluent in English.
And the really fascinating part, she did most of it by herself, practicing alone.
Right. So our goal today, our mission for this deep dive, is to unpack the core strategies she used, and maybe even more crucial, the mindset shifts.
Yeah, the shifts that Emily, that's the author, used to get over her shyness and actually speak English confidently, all through this solo practice.
We want to pull out the best bits, the most useful nuggets that you, listening right now, can maybe take and apply yourself. Doesn't matter what level you're at or, how you like to learn.
So let's set the scene a bit. Emily's situation.
Okay. So she's 24, living in a small town in Ohio.
Right. And her family. Immigrated from Mexico, so Spanish was her first language.
Exactly. So even though she grew up in the U.S., surrounded by English, understood it pretty well, reading, writing, not really the issue.
But speaking was different.
Yeah, speaking triggered this anxiety. She just froze.
And she didn't have the usual supports, right? Like no formal classes.
Nope, no classes, no money for tutors, and didn't really have English-speaking friends or family to practice with regularly.
So her toolkit was basically
her phone and, well, a lot of determination.
It's interesting, though, isn't it, how sometimes those limitations force creativity. She hit this wall, this communication barrier, but instead of just stopping, she kind of forged her own path without the traditional stuff.
Totally. And her first step, surprisingly simple, but wow, effective. Self-talk.
Just talking to herself.
Yeah. She started by recording herself saying really basic things, like literally, "Hi, my name is Emily."
And she even talks about how it felt hearing her own voice in English for the first time.
Yeah, she said it sounded soft, a bit unsure, but it was her voice.
That's a big step, actually, hearing yourself externally like that. It creates this new feedback loop. You start getting used to how you sound in that language.
And from those baby steps, she moved on. Started making recordings every night.
Just chatting about her day?
Yeah, her day, how she was feeling, whatever popped into her head. And she really stressed the freedom she felt because, quote, no one was listening.
Ah, that no judgment zone. Crucial.
Totally. A safe space. And then, this is where I thought it got really clever. She started having conversations with herself in the mirror.
Oh, okay. Like asking and answering questions.
Exactly. While doing totally mundane things, brushing her teeth, cooking, walking, asking herself stuff like, what do you want to eat? Or how do you feel today? Even, what's your dream? And answering out loud in English.
Wow. The mirror adds a whole other dimension, doesn't it? It's not just hearing yourself, but seeing yourself speak, almost like a practice run for a real conversation.
Yeah, you see your facial expressions, your body language.
Which probably helps reduce the anxiety later when you are talking to someone. Right?
Yeah.
Because you've sort of seen it already.
That seems to be the takeaway, yeah. Consistent, low-pressure practice, just getting familiar with speaking English, the physical act of it, without that stress of someone watching or judging.
It helps lower what researchers call the affective filter. Basically, all those emotional roadblocks, anxiety, self-consciousness that can stop you learning. When you're relaxed, not feeling scrutinized.
Your brain's just more open to it.
Exactly. More receptive to taking in and, crucially, putting out the language.
So alongside the self-talk, she was smart about using resources she actually had access to, starting with YouTube.
Ah, yes. Watching short English videos.
Yep. Cooking shows, vlogs, bits of podcasts, always with the subtitles on. But here's the key. She wasn't just passively watching.
Right. She was actively doing something with it.
Totally. Pausing the video, repeating what was said, really focusing on the pronunciation, the rhythm.
The sound of it. And she mentioned that understanding every single word wasn't the main goal at first.
No, it was more about just immersing herself in the sounds of English, which shows, I think, that you can create that immersion anywhere. You don't have to be living abroad.
You just need to engage actively with materials you do have. It's strategic, too, focusing on pronunciation and intonation like that. It builds the foundation for sounding clearer, more natural down the line.
And as she kept up with this solo practice, these little wins started happening. Small moments, but they felt huge for her confidence.
Like the coffee shop example.
Yeah, exactly. Going from just saying a basic, okay, to managing a full response like, it's going well, thanks, how about you? That little exchange, monumental for her.
Oh, I bet. Those everyday interactions are often the scariest part for shy learners. Getting over that initial hump of speaking to a stranger, even briefly, it's a massive psychological step.
She also started journaling every night in English.
But focusing more on just getting thoughts out, not perfect grammar.
Precisely, just expressing herself without stressing about mistakes. She even shared an entry. I feel proud today I talked to a customer without fear. I said, would you like your coffee hot or iced? And he smiled.
That's lovely. And writing helps too, right? Reinforces vocabulary, sentence structure, but in a different way. Focusing on meaning over perfection builds fluency there, which probably feeds back into speaking confidence.
And then there's that great little story about mixing up very boring and very bored.
Ah, yes. Making a mistake, but seeing it differently.
Yeah, she kind of laughed it off, but then realized, hang on, this isn't failure. This is feedback. It's teaching me something. That seems like a real mental shift.
Absolutely. That change in perspective, seeing mistakes not as shame, but as like essential learning tools, that's huge for language learning. It builds resilience, a growth mindset.
So she's built this really solid base practicing alone. But then she felt ready for more. Wanted to connect.
First step, sharing her recordings.
Yeah, with her cousin Sarah. And Sarah was apparently blown away, like, wow, you got this good just practicing by yourself. That positive feedback must have been amazing.
Oh, definitely. That external validation, proof that your hard work is paying off,
Yeah,
that can give you just the push you need for the next step.
which for Emily was a big one, joining a local English conversation meetup.
Okay, moving into real-time interaction. Nerve-wracking, I bet.
She said it was, but ultimately a really positive experience, actually having those back and forth conversations. She even remembered her opening line.
What was it?
Something like, hello, my dear friends, I'm Emily, and I've been practicing English alone for a year. Today, I want to meet real friends.
That's so honest and brave. Probably set a really welcoming tone right away.
Seems like it. She also jumped into online meetups.
Ah, widening the net. Practicing with different accents, maybe.
Exactly. Diverse speakers. And even dealing with, bad Wi-Fi and tech glitches became a learning moment.
Also,
It forced her to learn and use those essential clarification phrases like, could you repeat that? Or, sorry, I didn't quite catch that.
which are vital skills.
Oh.
Knowing how to handle those moments when you don't understand is key for real communication.
Now, here's where her journey gets even more interesting, I think. She didn't just stop at being a learner. She started giving back.
Okay, how?
She started volunteering at her local library's English Conversation Corner, so she shifted roles from learner to facilitator.
Wow. That's a fantastic way to solidify your own learning. When you have to explain something or guide others.
It forces you to understand it on a deeper level.
Exactly. It really cements the knowledge.
And she didn't stop there. She actually led a workshop based on her own experience. Called it something like, Talk to Yourself, Simple Steps to Fluency.
Sharing her own methods. The recorder, the mirror, journaling.
Yep, sharing what worked for her, which, again, probably reinforced it all for herself while helping others. A real win-win.
Absolutely. Builds her confidence not just as a speaker, but as someone who can guide others too.
And then, for the ultimate real-world test, she went to New York City.
Throwing herself in the deep end.
Pretty much. A deliberate choice to be in a place where English was everywhere, all the time, fast-paced, relying on her skills for everything.
Asking for directions, ordering food.
I met as strangers, all of it.
That kind of immersion, even short-term, can be such a powerful confidence booster. Applying your skills in unpredictable situations. It makes it real.
But Emily's story doesn't end with a trip. It's like her commitment just kept expanding. She built this whole ecosystem around her learning.
Okay, like what?
Started a blog, Emily's English Corner, writing about her journey, connecting with readers, began reading short novels aloud, recording herself to work on flow.
Still using those core techniques.
Yeah. Then she organized a solo speaking marathon at the library, guiding others, co-facilitated online sessions for a university on speaking confidence, started her own podcast,
Whoa, okay. She really ran with it.
wrote an ebook, developed an online course, organized pop-up practice cafes, weekend retreats. She even started planning a memoir and a nonprofit for community speaking
That's
groups.
incredible. It shows this deep, ongoing drive, not just for her own growth, but for creating community and sharing what she learned.
Right.
Each step reinforces the last.
It really is amazing. From that one first step recording, hi, my name is Emily, to all of this. Learning, connecting, teaching, mentoring.
Yeah. If we kind of zoom out, her whole journey really highlights some key things for learning a language successfully, doesn't it?
Definitely. Like, number one, consistency, persistence. She said she stayed with English like it was my best friend.
That really sticks with you. And also self-compassion, being kind to yourself, treating mistakes as teachers, not failures. That was huge for her.
Absolutely crucial. And being proactive, right.
Mm.
Using whatever resources were available, phone, YouTube, library meetups, not waiting for the perfect setup.
Taking ownership. And then that gradual expansion of her comfort zone, starting safe and solo, then slowly, carefully moving towards interaction.
It was a sustainable way to build confidence, step by step.
And underlying it all, it seems, was this real desire to connect with people through the language. That was the engine driving it all.
So, thinking about our listeners now,
Right.
what's the big takeaway? Emily's story is such powerful proof that fluency doesn't only happen in classrooms.
Right. That consistent, creative solo practice, plus being willing to eventually step out there, it can lead to amazing progress.
Her journey really highlights the power of self-talk, using everyday stuff around you, celebrating those small wins.
And eventually connecting with other learners.
Yeah.
It's all part of it.
And for you, listening, maybe you want to learn efficiently, thoroughly, but without feeling totally swamped. Her approach is great because it's structured, but also flexible.
You can start small, private. Those low-stakes exercises like recording yourself or talking to the mirror build confidence at your own pace, just like she did.
Which leads us to maybe a final thought, a question for you to chew on.
What's one small thing, one consistent action you could take today in your own alone time that could be your first step towards speaking more fluently?
It might feel tiny, maybe a bit awkward at first, like Emily's first recording.
But as her story shows, those small beginnings can genuinely lead to huge transformations.
And hey, if you're wondering what small step to take, her account is literally packed with ideas, practical tips and tricks.
Oh yeah, recording and reviewing yourself, the mirror practice, shadowing native speakers, keeping a vocab journal, reading out loud.
Role-playing scenarios by yourself, setting specific SMART goals for speaking, reflecting on progress, trying to think in English.
Using songs, making video diaries, teaching an imaginary friend seriously, it works. Flashcards, improv storytelling, even tongue twisters.
And now there are even AI partners you can practice with. There's just a wealth of strategies there.
Loads to explore. The point is to find what clicks for you, what resonates with your style, and just start. Integrate something small into your routine. See where it takes you. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're looking into a really compelling personal story. It's called From Silent to Fluent, My Alone Time English Practice.
Yeah, the source is this written account from someone, Emily, sharing how she got confident in English, basically, by practicing completely on her own.
Right. And our mission here is to really unpack that. How did she go from being, quite shy and quiet to speaking English confidently, all through this solo practice idea?
It's fascinating because, well, you usually think you need other people, right? Constant conversation partners to get fluent. But Emily's story, it sort of suggests another way, a path based on, like, your own initiative.
Totally. So, bit about her background. Emily, she's 24, living in Ohio, small town, originally from Mexico, so Spanish is her first language. And the thing that I think will hit home for a lot of listeners is she'd been in the U.S. since she was young, understood English fine, but speaking, that felt like a huge wall.
Yeah, that gap between understanding the receptive skill and actually speaking or writing the productive skill, it's really common.
She talks about being really shy, terrified of making mistakes, just paralyzed her when it came to talking.
And that fear, that anxiety around actually using the language, the fear of being judged, it can be such a major block for learners. You see it all the time.
She gives this really vivid example. In school, if a teacher asked her to read out loud, she'd just freeze, mind blank, voice gone.
Oof. Yeah.
It's a feeling a lot of us recognize, right?
Yeah,
Whether it's a new language or even just like public speaking anxiety.
definitely.
And later, she worked in a coffee shop, understood orders perfectly fine, but her response, usually just, okay,
Yeah.
a single word. It really shows how that fear kind of limits you.
That coffee shop example is powerful. It's not about not knowing the English. It's that psychological barrier stopping her from using what she knew. It really highlights the need to lower what linguists call the affective filter.
But here's the interesting part, the turn. She felt stuck, didn't have tons of chances for real English chats, so she just decided, okay, I'm going to practice by myself.
Right, taking control.
And that's what we're diving into. How did she actually do it? What methods, what mindset fueled this solo journey?
That decision, to actively create her own learning space instead of just waiting, it says a lot about her resourcefulness. When you don't have the external stuff, that internal drive, it becomes crucial.
Okay, so how did this alone time practice actually begin? Well, one evening, feeling a bit tired after work, she just opened the voice recorder app on her phone.
Simple start.
Yeah, and just said, "Hi, my name's Emily." Listen back. Said her voice sounded, a bit quiet, hesitant, but she also felt this spark like, maybe this could work.
And that act of listening back, that self-observation, is key. Often, how we think we sound is skewed by anxiety. Recording gives you that objective feedback, right? You can hear your pronunciation, your intonation, without the pressure of someone else listening right then.
That's like metacognition, yeah. Being aware of your own process.
Exactly, becoming aware of your own learning.
And so recording became a regular thing. She'd talk about her day, how she was feeling, even small work mistakes.
Like what?
Like, today I mixed up an order, felt so embarrassed. Or just, looking out the window, sky's really gray, hope it doesn't rain. Just talking.
The key there seems to be the freedom, speaking without worrying about being judged or corrected on the spot.
Right. No criticism, just getting the words out.
And that kind of consistent, low-stakes practice, it's gold for fluency. You're building that muscle memory for English sounds, rhythms, getting comfortable, forming sentences. It's like a musician practicing scales. Simple, but foundational.
It wasn't only the recorder, though. She also started talking to herself in the mirror.
Ah, the mirror technique.
Yeah. She even says it felt a bit silly at first,
Yeah.
asking herself, how did your presentation go? Or what are you going to make for dinner? And then answering herself out loud in English.
It might sound strange, but mirror practice is actually pretty smart. It hits a few things at once.
Like what?
Well, you connect the physical act of speaking, seeing your mouth move, your expressions with the sound. That visual feedback helps with pronunciation. Plus, it's like a mini simulation of a conversation, builds confidence in a safe space.
Okay, that makes sense. And she kept expanding her methods. Started watching short English videos, cooking shows, vlogs, podcast clips with the subtitles on.
Good combo, visual and audio input.
Her technique was to pause, then repeat what was just said, really trying to mimic the pronunciation, the rhythm.
Shadowing, that's a great technique.
And she made a point, interestingly, that it wasn't about understanding every single word. It was more about getting a feel for the language, enjoying the sounds of it.
That focus on enjoyment is so important for motivation. And yeah, shadowing helps internalize the flow, the intonation, even grammar patterns, without necessarily dissecting every word. It's about that comprehensible input idea.
And this solo work started showing up in the real world. She tells this lovely little story at the coffee shop again. A customer says hello, and instead of her usual, okay, she just naturally responded, "It's going well, thanks. How about you?"
That's huge.
Yeah, for her, that one sentence felt like this massive victory, proof the practice was working.
That's exactly it. The confidence built in private translates. She rehearsed those basic structures alone, felt comfortable, took a small risk in public, and bam, positive reinforcement.
She also started journaling in English, just a couple of paragraphs each night. Not worrying about perfect grammar, just getting thoughts down.
Reflective practice, also good for solidifying vocabulary.
She shared an entry. "I feel proud today I talked to a customer without fear. I said, 'Would you like your coffee hot or iced?' And he smiled. I smiled too." You can really feel the connection between her feelings and using the language there.
Definitely. And writing gives you time to think, to formulate, which complements speaking skills. It builds that personal connection with English.
And crucially, I think, she changed her mindset about mistakes. She mentioned saying something like, "I'm very boring," when she meant "I'm very bored."
Oh yeah, classic one.
But instead of getting flustered, she just laughed, learned the difference, saw errors as, learning moments.
That's the growth mindset, right? Seeing errors not as failures, but as steps. It reduces anxiety. It keeps you trying things. Huge for language learning.
Then came this really validating moment. Her younger cousin, Sarah, called her, Hadn't spoken properly in a while.
What?
And Sarah was just amazed, like, wow, your English is so much better. Are you taking classes?
The proof is in the pudding.
Emily's replying, no, I just talk to myself every day. Which really hits home the power of what she was doing. She even said English started to feel like a friend.
That's lovely. And that external validation, especially from family, it's incredibly motivating. Reinforces that her strategy works. Calling the language a friend shows that deeper comfort level she reached.
So that boost really pushed her. She decided to take the leap and join a local in-person English conversation meetup.
Okay, moving from solo to social. Big step.
Understandably nervous, she said. But it went really well. She met other learners, had actual back-and-forth conversations. She remembers her first partner, Daniel, asking about her job, and she could actually explain things, not just give one-word answers.
That's where the solo practice really pays off, right? Putting the rehearsed fluency and confidence into a live, spontaneous situation. It provides real-time feedback and likely boosted her confidence even more.
Then she branched out into online meetups, too.
Smart move. More variety.
Yeah, talking to people from different places, hearing different accents. And she picked up useful online phrases, too, like, could you repeat that? Or, sorry, I didn't quite catch that. Practical stuff.
Absolutely. Online chats expose you to so much diversity in speech, and learning those communication repair strategies, how to handle misunderstandings, is essential for any real conversation.
And she kept up her recording habit, but with a new angle. She'd listen for phrases she heard in the meetups and practice using them herself.
Ah, closing the loop.
Yeah, she mentions feeling really good, saying something confidently like, I'm looking forward to our next conversation.
That's such an effective cycle. Hear new language in use, practice it alone to internalize it, then use it yourself. Active recycling, that's key for making new language stick.
As her confidence kept building, she actually shifted roles a bit, started volunteering at the library's English Conversation Corner.
From learner to helper.
Nice.
Yeah.
Helping others find their words, talking about everyday things, summer plans, favorite ice cream. Yeah.
Teaching or facilitating is a fantastic way to solidify your own knowledge. You have to understand it deeply to explain it. Plus, it builds even more confidence.
Then someone invited her to lead a workshop based on her experience, called Talk to Yourself, Simple Steps to Fluency.
Wow, full circle.
Right, she shared her methods, the recorder, the mirror, the journaling, even led an exercise where people recorded themselves.
That's amazing. Going from being too shy to speak to teaching others her own successful methods, it really shows the power of overcoming that hurdle.
So, feeling pretty solid, she decided on a bigger test, a trip to New York City.
Okay, immersion time.
She made a real point of talking to people whenever she could, asking for directions, ordering food, chatting with strangers in cafes. She called each interaction a small celebration.
That proactive approach is fantastic. Not shying away, but actively seeking conversations in a high-intensity English environment. That really accelerates learning and shows how much her confidence had grown.
And get this, while she was in Times Square, she recorded a voice message to herself.
Like a progress marker.
Exactly. A symbol of how far she'd come, speaking confidently right there in the middle of everything.
That's a powerful moment, a real testament to her journey.
Back home, she kept expanding her reach. Started a blog, Emily's English Corner.
Sharing your insights.
Yeah, writing about books she read, recipes, those little language victories. And she really engaged with readers in the comments, answering questions about pronunciation, overcoming shyness, building a little community.
That's great. Blogging develops writing skills, connects you with others facing similar things. Sharing advice reinforces your own learning, too.
She also challenged herself to read one short English novel every month. And she'd read parts of it aloud, recording herself.
Ah, reading aloud. Another solid technique.
Yeah, to track her fluency, her rhythm, how natural she sounded over time.
It really helps with pronunciation, intonation, just the overall musicality of the language. And recording provides that objective measure of progress. Super motivating.
Then she organized something pretty cool at the library. A solo speaking marathon.
A marathon.
Wow! 4 hours. With stations for mirror practice, recorder challenges, even structured mini conversations. She said the feedback was amazing. Someone told her, I never thought I could talk for 5 minutes straight in English before today.
That's incredible impact. It shows her techniques really work and empower others. What a great initiative.
Her blog and the marathon buzz got noticed. A university's adult education center invited her to co-facilitate an online session about building speaking confidence.
Okay, so moving into more formal education circles now, her experience is being recognized as valuable expertise.
And it just kept snowballing. She
Yay.
launched her own podcast,
Makes sense.
Emily's Speaking Corner, sharing tips like pick 5 new words a week and use them, telling personal stories like asking for directions at NYC, and interviewing other people who'd use solo practice too.
Yeah, hearing other success stories is really powerful for listeners, creates that sense of, I can do this too.
Listeners loved it, apparently, said her voice was warm and genuine.
Podcasting's such a personal medium, right? Lets her connect on a deeper level.
The podcast grew, led to spots on local radio, articles, and newsletters. Eventually, she was featured on a national public radio program.
Whoa, national level.
Yeah, sharing her story, the coffee shop recordings, the library marathon, all of it.
That's fantastic reach. Her story clearly resonates.
Building on that, she wrote an ebook, Whispered a Word, a guide to alone time English practice, packed with practical exercises, mirror prompts, recorder challenges, journal starters.
Consolidating her knowledge into a resource people can use directly. Very smart. And sounds like it was well received.
Very. And here's a really touching outcome. A teacher in rural Montana used Emily's methods with her class,
Oh, wow.
and it helped this one really shy student gain the confidence to read a speech out loud without trembling.
That's the real impact, isn't it? Helping someone else find their voice like that. It just shows how universal these challenges are and how effective her approach can be.
Then she went bigger, developed an online course, Solo Speaker Academy, video lessons, worksheets, scholarships to make it accessible, built a whole online community around it.
Taking it to the next level, providing structured learning, support. The scholarship aspect is wonderful too. Shows a real commitment.
And the pinnacle, maybe. She gave a TEDx talk in Cleveland.
No way, TEDx.
Yep. Shared her journey, her message,
Yeah.
ended with, your voice deserves its spotlight. Powerful stuff.
Absolutely. What a platform to share that message. Incredible.
The Academy kept growing, became this global community. She started doing live online mirror chats, organized weekend retreats called Echoes of Confidence, pop-up practice cafes.
Just constantly innovating, finding new ways to support learners and build that community. Amazing dedication.
She even wrote a full memoir, going deeper into her story. And now she's planning a nonprofit
Really? What's the focus?
to create alone time speaking pods, like quiet spaces with resources in underserved areas, and train mentors.
Wow. From her own quiet practice to potentially enabling thousands more, that's truly inspiring.
It really is.
Yeah.
Now, that original source material also had a list of like 16 detailed tips and tricks from her journey. We can't cover all 16 now, but let's pull out a few key ones, give listeners some concrete takeaways.
Good idea. What stands out?
Well, definitely the recording and reviewing your own voice thing. We talked about it, but she really emphasizes it for self-awareness.
Right. That objective listening, identifying specific things, pronunciation, pace, filler words maybe that you might not notice otherwise. It's fundamental self-assessment.
And the mirror practice. Not just hearing, but seeing yourself speak.
Yeah.
Watching your mouth move, your expressions.
That visual feedback helps connect the physical production of sound. You can literally see how you form words, adjust your articulation. Plus, you work on nonverbal cues too.
Then there's shadowing native speakers, listening and speaking along at the same time, trying to match their rhythm, their intonation.
Yeah, shadowing is fantastic for catching the music of English. You internalize the natural flow, the stress patterns, almost unconsciously. Improves listening, too.
Another practical one, keep a personal vocabulary journal, but crucially, use the new words right away. Say them in sentences.
Active recall and application. So much better than just memorizing lists. Putting words into context makes them stick and makes them usable when you actually need them.
And finally, she really pushes trying to think in English, like narrate your day to yourself internally in English.
Yes. Cutting out that mental translation step. It's a huge leap towards fluency and speaking more spontaneously. It feels awkward at first, but it makes a massive difference over time.
The big message underlying all these tips, as Emily stresses, is just start small and be consistent.
Exactly. Consistency is king. Even short, regular practice adds up significantly.
So wrapping this up, Emily's story is just this incredible demonstration, isn't it? That consistent, focused practice, even totally alone, can lead to massive gains in fluency and confidence.
Absolutely. Her journey from silence to, well, having a voice that connects with so many people, it's genuinely inspiring.
It really shows that, not having constant conversation partners doesn't have to be a dead end. If you have that internal drive, that willingness to try things, you can make amazing progress.
Totally.
And for you listening, like Emily, you can start small. Those simple steps can build into something really significant. Your alone time, it's not wasted time. It can be this really valuable space for practice, for messing up, for growing.
It underlines that fluency is personal. Finding what works for you, even if it seems unconventional, like talking to a mirror, that's the key to unlocking your speaking potential.
So for our final thought today, maybe consider what's one small step, maybe even a solo step, you could take today? How can you start using maybe a moment of silence as that canvas for self-expression, as Emily might put it?
Yeah, maybe just record your voice for 60 seconds. Or try thinking about your dinner plans in English.
Just take a moment to think about your own relationship with speaking, with learning. And remember, really, every voice, including yours, has potential and deserves to be heard. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're looking into a really compelling personal story. It's called From Silent to Fluent, My Alone Time English Practice.
Right. And our goal here is to figure out how someone went from being, pretty quiet and hesitant in English to speaking confidently.
Exactly. And the key is she did it mostly by practicing alone. So we'll dig into the methods she used and the effects it had, which were actually pretty surprising.
Yeah, and what's great is we have Emily's own words. It's her firsthand account, which gives us a direct look into her experiences, the challenges, and, the techniques she came up with.
It's really detailed. So our mission is basically to unpack all of that, see how she made that journey from silence to, well, fluency.
And I think this is something a lot of you listening might connect with. I mean, whether you're learning a language or maybe just want to feel a bit more confident speaking up in general.
Yeah, that initial shyness Emily talks about.
Yeah.
It's pretty relatable, isn't it?
Definitely. So this deep dive should offer some practical ideas and hopefully a bit of inspiration too. Okay, let's get into it.
All right, so let's start with the background. Emily grew up here in the U.S. Her family moved from Mexico, so Spanish was her first language.
Yeah, huh?
But she was around English from a young age, school, everyday life, so she understood it pretty well.
That's the key thing, yeah. Reading, writing, understanding that was fine.
But Speepy, that was the hurdle.
Yeah.
She'd just freeze up. It's like a disconnect between knowing it and actually doing it.
And this anxiety around speaking, it had real consequences.
Oh, absolutely. She mentions having very few friends at school because of it. That fear just created this barrier.
It's a tough leap from understanding to speaking. Lots of learners face that.
And she talks about this one specific moment, a really vivid memory. A teacher asked her to read out loud in class.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and she just panicked. Felt this intense shame. You can really feel it in how she describes it.
And that feeling, that shame, it actually led to something important.
It did. Right then, she made this internal promise to herself. Someday, she would speak English clearly, confidently. That's quite a powerful moment. But, life goes on. Her first job was in a coffee shop. And that really brought the issue front and center again, didn't it?
It really did. Think about it. Coffee orders can get complicated. And she was stuck using just okay or sure.
Right. Minimal responses.
She said she felt small, like she couldn't fully participate. And that feeling, I think, that was the real catalyst for deciding she had to do something differently.
Which brings us to the core idea, practicing alone. If
Well,
opportunities weren't there with other people, she'd create them herself.
it started small, really small. She used her phone's voice recorder.
And just said,
Hi, my name is Emily. That was it.
wow.
And hearing her own voice back, it was soft, hesitant, but it was hers. And she felt this flicker of possibility, she calls it, not just fear.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
So that little recording opened a door.
It seems like it, because from then on, she made it a nightly thing. Before bed, she'd just talk into the recorder.
About what?
Anything, really. Her day, how she was feeling, simple things she noticed, made a mistake at work, the rain feels nice, stuff like that.
So no pressure, no judgment, just getting used to the sound of her own voice speaking English.
Exactly, desensitizing herself to it, which is like a huge step when you have that speaking anxiety.
And it wasn't just the recorder, was it?
No, she expanded, started talking to herself in the mirror, asking herself questions. Emily, how was your day? And then answering in English. She admits it felt pretty silly at first.
I can imagine.
Yeah, but it became routine. Brushing her teeth, cooking, walking. What should I have for dinner? How am I feeling? What are my plans? All answered out loud in English.
It's creating that safe space, isn't it? Where you can just try things out without worrying about mistakes.
Precisely. No fear, no embarrassment, just practice. Getting the mouth muscles working, getting familiar with the sound.
Then she started bringing in outside material.
Right. Short English videos, cooking shows, vlogs, bits of podcasts with subtitles on.
But not just watching passively.
No, that's key. She'd pause, repeat phrases, really try to copy the pronunciation, the rhythm, the intonation.
Mimicking, shadowing, basically. Yeah.
Exactly, shadowing. Even if she didn't understand every single word, the physical act of repeating was the focus. It trains your mouth, your ear, kind of bypassing the overthinking part.
And did she start seeing results from all this?
She did that
Yep.
coffee
Yeah.
shop job again. A customer asked, "How's your day going?"
And instead of, okay,
She said, "It's going well, thank you. How about yours?"
that's huge.
It felt like a big victory, she says. You can really feel the pride in that. A small exchange, but proof that the solo practice was translating.
That's the connection, right? Internal practice leading to external confidence.
Absolutely. It wasn't just about rules and lists. It was about building that automatic response needed for real conversation.
She also mentioned journaling.
Yeah, every night. A couple of paragraphs in English about her day. The focus wasn't perfect grammar, though.
More about just getting thoughts out.
Exactly. Expressing herself. She shared an early entry, something like, "I feel proud today. I talked to a customer without fear. I said, 'Would you like your coffee hot or iced?' And he smiled. I smiled too."
That's lovely. Really genuine.
And that kind of free writing, it helps cement vocabulary and sentence structures naturally. It strengthens that link between thinking in English and actually writing or speaking it.
And what about mistakes? Because everyone makes them.
That was a big shift for her. She tells this funny story about mixing up boring and bored, saying, "I'm very boring."
Uh-huh. Yeah, classic mistake.
But instead of getting embarrassed or discouraged, she learned to laugh at it. She started seeing mistakes as like little teachers,
Yeah.
signposts.
That's such a healthier attitude, isn't it? Not failures, just
Yeah.
data.
Like a GPS rerouting you. Okay, need to adjust here. That self-compassion is crucial for sticking with it.
So she's doing all this practice, building confidence internally. Then came a moment of outside recognition.
Yeah, a big one. Her younger cousin, Sarah, called her from Texas, and Sarah noticed. She was like, "Wow, your English is so much better. Are you taking classes?"
And Emily's answer,
"No, I just talk to myself every day," which, kind of blew Sarah's mind.
I bet.
And Emily said that conversation made her realize how effective her solo practice actually was. She had this great line, "Alone but not lonely, English became my friend."
That's really powerful. That external validation must have been a huge boost.
Oh, for sure. It confirmed that the progress she felt was real, visible to others.
So that spurred her on to actually seek out real conversations.
It did. She found a free English conversation group. It was in Columbus, a 2-hour drive away.
Wow, that's dedication. Must have been nerve-wracking, though.
Definitely. She talks about being nervous. But she remembered all her solo practice, all those hours talking to herself, and that gave her the courage. It was a brave step, going from that private space to a group of strangers.
How did it go?
It was really positive. She describes the joy of actual back and forth, the laughter, understanding each other. Totally different from the brief coffee shop exchanges.
So the solo work built the foundation, but the real interaction was the next level.
Exactly. You need both, really. Solo builds the skills and confidence. Interaction provides the real-world feedback and adaptation practice.
Then she found online groups, too.
Yeah, a Facebook group with weekly online meetups, people from all over.
That must have presented its own challenges, like connection issues or different accents.
For sure. And she learned to navigate that, getting comfortable saying things like, "Could you repeat that?" Or, "Sorry, I didn't catch that."
Essential phrases. Real communication isn't perfect.
Nope. And having those tools to manage misunderstandings is key.
Did her solo practice change after joining these groups?
It did. She started listening for new phrases or vocabulary in the group chats.
So she'd bring them back to her private practice.
Exactly. She'd practice using those new expressions in her nightly recordings until they felt natural. So it became this cycle. Learning conversation, practice alone, apply in conversation.
That's a very active approach to learning.
Very. And then she started giving back. Volunteering at her local library's English Conversation Corner.
Helping others.
Yeah, and she found she really enjoyed helping people find their words, which probably boosted her own confidence even more.
Teaching is often the best way to learn, isn't it?
Absolutely. It solidifies your own understanding, and that led to her actually leading a workshop.
Really? What is it called?
Talk to yourself. Simple steps to fluency. She shared her story, her techniques.
That's amazing. from being too scared to speak to teaching others how to.
It's a huge transformation. Shows the power of that consistent effort and then being willing to share it.
Did she test her skills in other ways?
She did. She took a trip to New York City.
Oh, wow. Trial by fire.
Kind of. She intentionally went to push herself to use her English in that fast-paced environment. She saw every successful interaction, no matter how small, as a small celebration.
That's a great mindset. Deliberately seeking out challenges.
Yeah, that kind of immersion, even temporary, really cements your skills and confidence.
So her journey didn't stop there. She started creating things.
Right. She started a blog, Emily's English Corner,
Yeah.
shared recipes, books she was reading, little wins.
And embraced imperfection in her writing, too.
Just like she did with speaking. She answered reader questions, built this little community. It felt like a natural next step, sharing what worked for her.
Did she keep up with reading?
Yeah, set herself a challenge.
Yeah.
One short English novel a month. And she read them aloud, recorded herself sometimes.
Good for fluency, good for vocab, good for comprehension.
All of it, connecting the written word to the spoken sound.
And then she organized an event.
A solo speaking marathon at the library. 4 hours, different stations, mirror practice, voice recorder challenges, mini conversations.
That sounds fun.
Yeah.
And probably really helpful.
The feedback was great. People felt more confident afterwards. It was a cool way to bridge that gap between practicing alone and interacting.
Her work started getting noticed more widely then.
It did. A university's adult education center asked her to co-facilitate an online session about building speaking confidence.
Moving into more formal educational settings.
Yeah, her personal project was gaining real traction. And then the podcast.
Emily's Speaking Corner.
That's the one. Shared tips, but also interviewed other people who'd learned by practicing alone. Like Maria, who practiced talking to her closet mirror.
Love that. Makes it relatable.
Totally. The podcast reached more people, led to local radio spots, newsletter features.
She even got tapped by National Public Radio.
Yeah, contributed to a program about creative language learning. Just amazing thinking back to where she started.
Incredible perseverance.
And then came an ebook, Whisper to Word, a guide to alone time English practice.
And piling all her techniques.
Yeah, practical exercises written in that encouraging conversational style she has. People found it really helpful for getting started.
And from the ebook. An online course.
Solo Speaker Academy, video lessons, worksheets. She even offered scholarships to make it accessible.
That's fantastic. She must have felt proud seeing her students make progress.
Immensely proud, she said. It really fueled her commitment.
And then the TEDx talk. That's a huge stage.
Incredible achievement. TEDx Cleveland, sharing her story, her message. Your voice deserves its spotlight. Taking her personal journey to this massive audience.
So the Academy grew from there.
Into a global community, yeah. They even did live mirror chats, which is a cool idea, practicing together, but still solo in a way.
And she kept innovating with events.
Yep. Pop-up practice cafes locally, weekend retreats, mixing solo techniques with real interaction, always blending those two sides.
That holistic approach seems key. Individual practice plus community support.
Definitely. And then she wrote a memoir.
Pulling it all together. Her story and the stories of people she helped.
Yeah, a deeper dive into the whole journey. She launched it online. People joined from all over the world. It's a really nice culmination.
Is she still going? What's next?
Well, now she's planning a nonprofit.
Oh, wow.
The idea is to create alone time speaking pods and provide resources in underserved communities, taking her personal mission and scaling it up for wider social impact.
That's really inspiring, from talking to herself in the mirror to potentially helping communities globally.
It really is. Seeing that evolution is fascinating.
So if we boil it all down, what are the biggest takeaways from Emily's whole journey?
Okay, first, definitely the power of just doing it. Consistent solo practice, even simple stuff makes a huge difference. It wasn't fancy, it was just regular.
Repetitions.
Absolutely. Second, that mindset shift. Being kind to yourself, seeing mistakes as learning moments, not failures. That self-compassion is vital.
And the specific techniques she used were really practical.
Totally. Things you can actually do. Recording yourself and listening back, it's cringy at first, maybe, but so useful for hearing yourself.
Right. And the mirror practice, seeing yourself speak.
Shadowing, like we talked about, for rhythm and intonation. Journaling in English to get thoughts flowing. Reading aloud, dramatizing things a bit even.
Solo role-playing, too, prepping for situations.
Yeah, setting smart goals for practice. Reflecting on what works. Actively trying to think in English.
Using songs, video diaries, teaching an imaginary friend that's a creative one.
Flashcards with speaking prompts. improv storytelling, tongue twisters for articulation,
Yeah.
even AI chat partners now. It's a whole toolkit.
A really comprehensive toolkit she built through experience.
Exactly. And the key point is how all that internal work directly fueled her confidence for external communication. It wasn't just about fluency in a vacuum. It was about lowering the anxiety to connect with people.
And building a community eventually.
Right. That came later, but the foundation was that solo work.
So the core message really is, you don't necessarily need classes or partners constantly available. Dedicated solo practice can get you really far with fluency and confidence.
Yeah, that alone time can be incredibly productive, a rehearsal space for your voice.
So for you listening, maybe think about how you could use some of these ideas, whether it's for language learning or just speaking up more confidently anywhere in life.
Her methods are accessible, they offer real starting points, which kind of leads to a final thought, doesn't it?
It does. Emily started with a whisper to herself, right? And look where it led, this global connection of voices. So what could your alone time practice unlock for you? What conversations might be out there waiting for your voice? Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.